Violent cracks rippled through the neon sky above Neo-Toronto, sending torrents of blue-gold lightning streaking through Midtown. Crowds scattered as shimmering air warped the world around them. Cars blinked in and out of existence, and buildings melted from chrome towers to crumbling ruins, and back again, all in the span of seconds. Maris Lin ducked behind a flickering hollow kiosk as time buckled for the 13th time that hour. The tremors made her hands shake, but not with fear, with focus. Streams of quantum code shimmered before her eyes, the result of 6 sleepless nights spent glued to her battered laptop. According to her algorithm, the next temporal storm would land in exactly 14 minutes, give or take the 10 seconds it took her to calibrate the forecast. The city, once smooth, modern, proud, had become a fever dream, torn between decades with each pulse of the ChronoTide. Amid the chaos, basic survival was hard enough for most. For Maris, already exiled for hacking the city's traffic out of a blackout, it was just background noise. Crackling static made her flinch. The kiosk's public holofeed sputtered to life, displaying a slick, suited woman whose badge read, the Advanced Temporal Exploration Corps. Attention citizens, remain indoors until further notice. The anomaly is under observation. Maris's lips twisted in bitter amusement. Observation, sure. Like all those unmarked vans prowling the neighborhoods weren't recruiting. Some said abducting. Anyone with a hint of time sense or technical talent. She checked her pocket for the thumb drive holding her compass prediction code. Still there, not that she could hide for long. A sudden shadow loomed behind her. Maris Lin? A voice rasped, barely audible over the chaos. She spun around, ready to bolt, but paused. The figure in front of her was no cop. His clothes were too old, patched with fabrics out of fashion for 50 years, and he wore a pendant that glowed with alien script. His eyes darted between the wild, whirlpooling city blocks around them and her trembling hand on the drive. "You don't have time to run," he whispered, voice urgent as a storm. "They're coming, and they know about your code. We need you, Maris, before everything breaks." "Who are you?" Maris shot back, backing against the trembling kiosk. Around them, time swirled again, the city warping from future spires to cracked stone columns and back. "Why should I trust you?" The man thrust out his palm. On it was a tattoo of a broken clock, the symbol of the Rebel Alliance she'd only read about in encrypted forums. "Because," he said, catching her gaze as thunder split the air, "if 80 gets your algorithm, the ChronoTide will drown us all." Rain sizzled as it struck fractured pavement, each drop sparking with energy drawn from some other or maybe some other world. Maris kept one wary eye on the rebel, who called himself Red, as she clutched her drive. Her mind spun. She'd expected ATEC, maybe even bounty hunters, but not a living myth out of the back channels. "Where are we going?" she demanded, shivering as a quantum ripple flickered through her bones. Red surveyed the shifting skyline. "Someplace safe. The rebels have a labyrinth outside the anomaly field. Chronocells. You'll be surrounded by friends, not temporal thieves." A street away, a monstrous howl tore the sky. ATEC drones swooped lower, their searchlights scouring everyone's faces, seeking the one who could predict the future. Maris ground her heel into the crumbling sidewalk, fighting panic. "How do I know you're not lying? ATEC knows about my algorithm. For all I know, you're working for them." Red gave her a crooked smile. "If I was, why risk meeting you in a time-fractured zone? Why not tranquilize you and call in the sweepers?" She weighed her odds. All she wanted was normalcy, but the world had broken that word into pieces. Whatever happened now, she had to move. They weaved through distorted alleyways, sometimes stepping briefly into centuries past or glimpses of impossible tomorrows. Maris's sneakers crunched on Victorian cobblestone that flickered between glass tiles and mossy gravel. She tried not to stare at the ghostly outlines of people who shouldn't be there. Long-gone grandmothers crossing paths with future-suited soldiers. At last, they passed through a heavy, shielded door, hidden behind a mural of shattered clocks. Inside, murmurs from dozens of rebels bounced off steel beams. A holographic map flickered in the center, showing tidal waves of time distortion pulsing over the city. A grizzled woman with an enhanced arm approached. "You brought her." Maris straightened. "I'm not here to join any cause. I just want this to stop." The woman cut her off. "You don't have that luxury, not with the math you wrote. ATC wants control. We want repair. Choose your side, Lin." If we act in time, maybe we save the world. If not, through the giant overhead window, another surge hit. The city outside melted into swirling, chaotic fragments of 1,000 different histories. Red nodded as the room fell to tense silence. Welcome to the edge, Maris. The ChronoTide's rising. Maris sat at a battered metal table, her knuckles white around her thumb drive. The rebels' hideout hummed with tension. Across from her, Red and the cyber-armed woman Dana watched her with the patience of people who measured time in a very different way. That algorithm of yours, Dana said, tapping metallic fingers on the table, is the first actual lead we've had. If we can map the tides before they hit, we can move people, supply lines, maybe even slow the rips. So, what'll it be? Maris' mind raced. The stakes were bigger than she'd ever imagined. My code predicts anomalies, she admitted. But it can't stop them. It just shines a flashlight into the storm. Red smiled. A flashlight's all anyone ever needed to find their way out. Dana's eyes softened. We're underdogs, Maris, but rebellion's built on small victories. Give us your code, work with us, or walk away and hope AC doesn't find you first. A beat passed. Maris exhaled slowly. All her life she'd tried to dodge trouble. Was this how she helped shape the future? Fine, she said quietly, but I don't trust you or anyone. If I do this, I run the show. You need my work more than I need your revolution. Red grinned. Good. Chalk one up for free will. In the adjacent command tent, a flurry of activity intensified, screens blinking with temporal seismic charts. Maris plugged in her thumb drive. Rows of quantum calculations burst across the rebels' mainframe, dazzling even the most jaded hackers. The city's shifting time fields, previously random and terrifying, suddenly connected in a mosaic of patterns and probabilities. A murmured sense of hope filled the room. But as Maris tweaked parameters, something unexpected flickered in her code. An anomaly moving against the ChronoTide, faster than any previous storm. Her gut twisted. We've got 30 minutes before the next surge. Bigger than anything yet. That's not a prediction, it's a warning. Dana's metal fist slammed the table. ATC knows. They'll be moving too. This city could be erased or rewritten. A clockless hush settled in the bunker. Red's eyes locked on Maris. What do you need from us? Maris's voice was steady for the first time. Full access. Intel from your scouts. Every emitter you can spare. And one more thing. When the time comes, don't second-guess me. Dana gave an approving nod. Let's see what the rebellion can do with a little light in the dark. Outside, the ChronoTide rumbled. Closer, angrier, and for the first time, just maybe, beatable. Emergency lights flickered in the chronocell's corridors, red and blue blending with the warped daylight swirling outside the bunker's reinforced glass. Maris had never seen this kind of tension on so many faces. Old-world exiles, cybernetically enhanced warriors, a handful of children clutching antique toys. Each one knew the next surge could rewrite their lives or end them altogether. At the center of it all, Maris scrawled equations on a clear tablet, fingers flying. Every line of code was a fight against panic. She could feel the pressure, Red pacing behind her, Dana's heavy arm hovering protectively by the doors. Overlays of possible futures swam across her screens. Burning streets, frozen centuries, moments where nothing survived. An incoming transmission snapped the silence. A rebel scout, voice rough and panicked. ATEC squads, 12 strong, exo-armored. They're moving on District D. Looks like they're deploying anchor arrays, fixing the timeline for extraction. Dana cursed. They'll trap half the quadrant in a loop. She looked to Maris. You said you wanted every emitter we can spare. What's the plan? Maris hesitated, heart pounding. We flood their anchors with a resonance pulse. My prediction model can time the burst so the anchors short-circuit when the surge hits. If it works, it'll break ATS's hold and maybe destabilize the anomaly. Long enough for us to get people out. But it'll be close. Too close. Red's lips twitched in a nervous half-smile. You sure this isn't suicide? She met his gaze, trembling but fierce. We either gamble on code or we let ATC own time itself. I won't be their tool. A young rebel Tomas darted in with a slim data slate. Ghosts outside, hundreds. They're people from other timelines, trapped, glitching in and out. The bunker vibrated as the city outside blurred, glimpses of past and future citizens briefly filling the streets. Maris's fingers danced. Code, coordinates, arcs of probability as she calculated the only window for the pulse. Ready the emitters. Sync with my countdown, no matter what else happens. Dana barked orders into a comlink, all at once imposing and desperately hopeful. You heard her. This is what the rebellion's been waiting for. Get those people out. Maris's voice was iron as she sent the final command. Pulse in 3, 2, 1, now! A deafening surge of light and sound split the air. Outside, ATEC anchors sparked and shuddered. The streets shimmered, timelines fracturing and fusing. For a heartbeat, everything was possible. History and future colliding, rebels and ghosts alike blinking in fearful awe. And when it was over, the city had changed. Survivor cheers mixed with sobs. The bunker's monitors flashed green. Hundreds rescued, for this ripple at least. But Maris watched the code scroll, jaw set tight. The ChronoTide had not retreated. If anything, the next wave was coming faster and higher. Night hammered down, or what passed as night under swirling bands of electric blue cutting the horizon. In the aftermath of the pulse, the chronocells buzzed with anxious hope. Survivors embraced, rebels slapped backs, even Dana allowed herself a rare smile. But for Maris, the celebration was short-lived. The screen in front of her pulsed a crimson warning. Tidal acceleration detected. The city's anomaly readings spiked in unpredictable bursts. Gone were the neat patterns of earlier storms. In their place, violent contractions and expansions across multiple districts. Something, or someone, had altered the nature of the ChronoTide. Red found Maris hunched over in a corner, eyes hollow with exhaustion. You did more than any of us dreamed, he murmured, kneeling beside her. But you don't look like someone who just saved hundreds. I didn't, she replied quietly. Not really. We're slipping further out of sync. Look, she gestured to a projection. Ghost populations were surging. More people from other timelines were appearing, some staying longer, some vanishing. It's like the dams burst. The walls between now and then are paper thin. Dana stormed over, bionic arm whirring. ATEC's been silent too long. Whatever they're planning, it's big, bigger than any rescue. Underground chatter says they're building a keystone array. They want to anchor one timeline permanently and erase the rest. Red's voice shook. That's not control. That's genocide. Maris's fury burned through her fatigue. We have to stop them. My model can predict surge vectors, but the only way to disrupt an array that size is at the source. We need to get into ATE's main compound. She paused, swallowing her fear. And I need to go alone. No chance, Dana snapped. That place is a fortress. Maris dug in. You think I want this? I wrote the math. Their security algorithms are just repackaged versions of mine. If I don't get in, they'll use my own protocols to lock us out forever. A tense silence followed, broken by Tomas piping up. If she goes, I'm going too. You'll need a runner on the outside, someone to jam comms and extract. Maris nodded, determination setting in. We'll need a distraction. Draw their eyes while we slip inside. Red, can you rally the cells? Red's grin, ragged but real, was answer enough. Time to remind ATC who really owns the city. Outside, the sky rippled, a precursor to the biggest ChronoTide yet. Inside, Maris and her makeshift crew readied for a mission that would decide reality itself. In the blue-lit dawn, the city felt hollow, staggering aftershock and anticipation clinging to every street. Maris, Tomas, and Red gathered under an abandoned maglev station, finalizing their plan with hasty whispers as a ghostly parade of time-lost figures shimmered just outside their field of vision. Tomas double-checked a cracked wrist pad. Chronocells are ready. Once we trigger the blackout, ATC's eyes will be glued to the decoy attack on Sector 7. That gives you 30 minutes to get inside. He pressed a battered comm into Maris's palm. Emergency extraction channel. If you need us, shout, otherwise we vanish. Red looked Maris straight in the eye. Doubt is poison. Remember, ATEC built their fortress to lock out fate, not someone with the keys. Maris tried a thin smile. If I don't come back, tell Dana the bionic arm is overkill. Tomas cracked a wry grin. That'll make her day. Minutes later, everything was in motion. Explosions thundered from Sector 7, sending neon fire across the sky. ATE's drones swarmed the disturbance, strobing spotlights through the chaos. Maris and Tomas slipped through back alleys, cutting across zones that flickered past centuries with every step. Rusted subway one moment, mirrored moonglass the next. They reached ATEC's main compound, a towering monolith rimmed with swirling temporal barriers. Guard towers pulsed with blue-white shields, and a constant susurrus of displaced time seemed to whisper warnings through the air. Tomas pulled back as planned, prepping interference devices in a drain tunnel. Maris pressed her palm to a scanner, masked code trickling from her own algorithms. Time itself bent for a split second, letting her walk through the main gate with a flutter in her chest. Inside, corridors twisted. One heartbeat she sprinted through clinical labs, the next she was wading through a Victorian library impossibly mapped into the same space. With each surge, the past and future battered at reality's seams. A sudden alarm blared. Steel shutters slammed and flashing warnings cut the air. Intruder, temporal anomaly detected. Maris ducked into a service shaft, heart racing, breath ragged in the growing heat. Her comm crackled. Tomas's voice, urgent. Multiple signals converging on you. They're deploying phase guards. She swallowed fear, wiping sweat from her forehead. She was one floor from the Keystone Array, the source of AT's new power. Maris whispered, more to herself than anyone else, time to finish what I started. All around her, the ChronoTide pressed harder against the world and against her nerve than ever before. The walls vibrated with power, echoes of fractured centuries bleeding through sterile facility steel. Maris crouched in the shaft, her breath steadying as phase guards stomped past, their armor humming with a faint, dissonant melody, an alert to the storm inside as much as the one outside. Her mind tunnel-visioned on the Keystone Array, a room rumored to hold the beating heart of ATEC's timeline control, the final lock on every possibility. Maris pulled a wire-thin tablet from her jacket, the thumb drive still warm in her grip, the last of her code, her only weapon. Tomas's voice whispered in her ear, barely audible above the static. They're tightening nets everywhere. I've jammed most trackers, but you need to move. You've maybe 7 minutes before automated lockdown. Maris nodded to herself. She counted phases in her head, waited for the next temporal surge, and slipped into the corridor like a shadow squeezed between ticks of a broken clock. She darted past labs where scientists and soldiers, frozen in time or flickering through their own histories, stood helpless as alarm klaxons wailed. The Keystone Chamber's vault door loomed ahead, inscribed with quantum latticework, her own mathematical signature woven through the locking mechanism. A sharp echoing voice halted her. You didn't think we wouldn't recognize your algorithms, Lin. An imposing figure stepped from the wavering shadows, a woman draped in ATE's highest command colors, eyes cold and sharp as diamond. Director Halden, the very mind behind the temporal fortress. Maris stiffened, but drew her code tablet up, thumb ready to detonate her access barrage. And you didn't think I'd come to stop you? Halden smiled thinly, hand on a security baton humming with pale light. You're not here to stop me, Maris. You're here because you want to see if you're as powerful as the monster you made us into. Let me through. Maris's voice didn't waver. She wasn't the frightened outcast anymore. Your array doesn't fix what's broken. It erases everything that doesn't fit. Halden's reply was calm, controlled. Would you rather let time drown us all? Or do you think your rebel scraps offer more than chaos? You could join us, restore your name, save what parts of the world you care about. Isn't that enough? Maris's pulse pounded, choice coiling before her, heavier than any code. You're scared of the unknown, Halden. I used to be too, but I'm not anymore. The ChronoTide roared through the city once more, flooding their standoff with blue-gold lightning. Maris inhaled, thumb poised to rewrite the keystone. I choose what's right, not what's easy. And as reality threatened to tear itself apart, she leaped past Halden, code ready, trust for the first time in herself and the people she aimed to save. The Keystone Chamber thrummed, a heart forged from light and quantum pulses. Maris slammed her access code into the console, fingers trembling with adrenaline. Halden lunged, baton arcing with contained storm energy, but the Keystone safeties recognized Maris's patterns. Her final backdoor held. Override accepted, the system chimed. Lattices shifted. A translucent display unfolded, showing a hologram of the planet blanketed by ChronoTide waves. Peaks where timelines threatened collision, valleys where the world had nearly unraveled. Halden grabbed Maris by the shoulder. Her voice was raw. "If you do this, the chaos could rip us apart. You have no idea what you're unleashing." Maris shook her off, breath unsteady but resolve hardened. "That's a risk you took the second you locked away possibility. The world isn't meant to be a single story." Command lines flashed. Maris rigged her algorithm, recalibrating the array, transforming it from a controller to a conductor. Instead of erasing timelines, her pulse would buffer the wildest storms, giving every strand of history a chance to breathe. She hoped. She had to hope. Outside, alarms flared, security pounding on the far vault door. Tomas's desperate voice crackled over the comm. "Extraction teams boxed in. Red's holding the rear, Dana's leading survivors out a service tunnel. But the biggest wave's almost here. Maris, we're out of time." Halden's face was a twisted mask of anger and dread. "You think chaos is freedom? People will die because of your gamble." "People already have," Maris shot back. "This time, at least it's their future, not yours." She pressed the final enter key, and a rush of quantum light danced from her console to the Keystone core. The city's sky split as the ChronoTide crested, every possible present and fractured future blazing in the storm. The fortress began to shudder, every alarm in the compound wailing. ChronoTide energies poured through the Keystone, refracted by Maris's new code. All at once, reality seemed to lurch. Outside, rebels and lost souls alike paused as flickers of themselves both old and new flashed through their minds. Memories of lives unlived, losses and hopes carried from other ages. Inside the chamber, Halden collapsed against the wall, defeated. "If this fails, you destroy everything." Maris closed her eyes and braced as quantum feedback pulsed everywhere. "Or maybe I give us a chance. The rest is up to all of us now." As the storm hit, nothing for Maris, nothing for anyone would ever be the same. Maris gripped the edge of the Keystone Array console as the world bent around her. The Keystone's new routine, her code, ripples outward, wrestling the tides, letting them swirl yet keeping them from collapsing into any one version of reality. For long seconds it seemed like nothing was real. Walls and guards, storms and rebels, past and future, all pulsed in and out of view. She saw versions of herself in battle gear, as a child, as someone old and worn, each a possibility, each flickering away in the quantum surge. Tomas's face popped up on the comm display, static, fuzzy, but alive. Red's holding the security gate, Dana's still getting people out, ChronoTide's eating the north wall. "Maris, are you there?" "I'm here," Maris rasped, watching the array fight to balance a million histories. "Just keep them moving. The Keystone's barely holding, no promises about what happens next." Halden staggered to her feet, dazed, fear showing through the seeds of respect. "You did it. It's stabilizing. But if your pulse drops for even a moment, all these timelines could snap back and erase everything. You need to maintain the field, Lin. No rest. No second chance." Maris stared at her hands, noticing her palms flickering, momentarily translucent. She was becoming part of the quantum hum. "I can anchor it for now, but it costs. If I stay, I risk losing myself. If I leave, the field collapses." Tomas's voice cracked with worry. "You promised us a chance. Don't let them make you the next tyrant." Red's comm came through, battered and breathless. "If we can get the survivors to the subzone generator, Dana can take over amplification. Patch us in. Let's not trade one prison for another." Around her, the Keystone chamber was a war zone of quantum energy, but Maris's code held just steady enough for hope. Halden, beaten, simply sat. "If you go, you risk chaos. If you stay, you're a gatekeeper." Just what I became. A knot of fear and anger twisted inside Maris. She was an underdog, always on the run, always fixing problems caused by others. Now she could let herself become part of the machinery or risk everything to hand the future back to everyone else. "I didn't fight to be the villain," she said fiercely. "I fought to give people a choice." Overcome, Tomas pleaded, "Maris, whatever you do, you're not alone. Let us help you." The ChronoTide howled around the compound, clashing against the code band. With her fingers trembling over the console, Maris had to decide. One final surge to move the field to the survivors' hands, or surrender herself to the Keystone to keep it alive. The planet itself seemed balanced on the edge. Lightning forked in the sky. With the world one heartbeat from oblivion, Maris prepared for the ultimate leap. One choice left for the fate of everyone and everything. The keystone array throbbed at the heart of the collapsing fortress. Maris's hands hovered over the console, fingertips glowing in the light, half code, half human. Every sense was stretched thin. She could feel the pulse of the planet, the raw, panicked hope of millions, the risk that whatever she chose would become reality itself. Behind her, Halden waited, silent and defeated. On the comm, Tomas and Red shouted urgent reminders that she wasn't alone. Outside, the ChronoTide loomed, a tsunami of possibility, grinding history and future into shreds. The rebels hustled survivors through blinking corridors, Dana barking orders with machine precision. All the world was balanced on the thin wire of Maris's will. She knew, finally, that her life had not been an error or accident. She understood the code and the chaos, and with a deep breath, she chose to trust not just her own genius, but the resilience and courage of everyone who'd followed her this far. Amplify dispersal protocol, she whispered into the console. Link subzone generator. Relinquish anchor. The keystone fought her, energy crackling so fiercely the world seemed to warp in place, colors blurring, faces from all her possible lives screaming and cheering at once. But she leaned into the quantum storm and pressed the final sequence, sending the field's power, its burden and its blessing, out to the subzone where Dana waited, where the people were. For a heartbeat, she flickered between worlds, 100 versions of herself, some happy, some broken, all fighting to protect the precious, wild tangle of possibility. Then, with a crack like the forging of a star, the keystone relinquished its grip. Waves of temporal energy washed over Neo-Toronto. Streets stilled, frameworks of steel and stone settling into something new and solid. Ghosts from other ages lingered for a moment alongside the living, sharing silent farewells and forgiveness before fading gently, at last, to peace. Dana's voice thundered from the comm, triumphant and unsteady. The generator synced! She did it! Maris did it! The field's holding, but it's free! The world's ours again! Maris fell to her knees as the storm calmed. Red and Tomas sprinted to her side, grabbing her shoulders as she flickered, briefly weightless and unreal. She looked up at them through a haze of tears and quantum afterglow. I thought I had to hold it alone, but I never did. Halden, humbled, watched from the debris. You did what I could not. You trusted them. A new dawn rose over a city changed but whole. Maris stood, letting Red and Tomas support her. The chronocells would remain vigilant. The ATEC regime was broken, but humanity had pulled back from the edge by working together, by believing in their shared, imperfect, and precious future. Maris smiled at the world she'd helped reshape. Now, she said quietly, it's time for all of us to decide what we become. The ChronoTide had passed. Its scars remained, but so did hope, and the knowledge that, whatever storms still came, humanity could face them together.